In 2014, Germany were world champions. In 2018, they arrived in Russia with something to protect: group stage exit. In 2022, they arrived in Qatar, determined to make something of this cycle: group stage exit. For 12 years, that curse has hovered over the Germans like a dark cloud. That curse has been undone. After a heartbreaking result for the Ivorians, Germany proved that they are not allowing the memes to go on and are in a knockout stage of a World Cup. Perhaps Dennis Undav was the answer all along. And if Undav is the answer, what's Leroy Sané? Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. This World Cup has been incredible so far for me. I don't know about you guys, but there have been so many incredible moments so far. Complaints about the Scottish drinking all the booze in Boston. Police officers showing the kind of technique we can all get behind. A nationwide ban on Vegemite. And at the time of recording this video, we are only about halfway through the group stage. So a lot is still to come. In this video, we're going to be talking about a couple matches. They're timestamped for your convenience if you want to fast forward a little bit. But why not just sit back, enjoy the ride, subscribe while you're at it. Now, Germany versus Ivory Coast. This was one of those table-topping affairs. Both teams were on 3 points. Germany, as they always are, were believed to be the favorites going into this one, but I think that I'm definitely not the only one that was a little bit wary of giving them that title because Germany have been shaky. They did smash Curaçao in the first round, 7-1, but yes, it is Curaçao, population of 150,000 versus the 4 stars of Germany. And not only that, but Curaçao were being much more competitive in this game than many thought they would be in that first half an hour. If you look at the momentum bar of the game, you'll see that Curaçao were in a very good place just before the first hydration break. They had just scored an equalizer only to have their momentum stripped away from them at the least opportune moment. We don't need to talk about how the rest of the game went. Germany probably would have won the game regardless, but you can see how this was a bit of a problem. Funnily enough, that post-hydration break, momentum shift played a large role in this game for Ivory Coast versus Germany, and I can already see this being a really major plot line and storyline as the stakes for these games in this World Cup grow, because it's not an insignificant change. Ivory Coast, on the other hand, showed that they had some real defensive solidity in their game against Ecuador. They held Ecuador for the entirety of the game, and then at the very end were able to pounce and then just steal a victory against them, and they had really good value for it. So when they started this game against Germany on the front foot, with the better opportunities, I was firmly of the belief that Germany was in trouble, an opinion that was fortified when Côte d'Ivoire took the lead in the 30th minutes. Yan Diomande combined with Amad Diallo, and then Franck Kessié showed up to finish it all off. Diomande was having a really good first half. He was making Joshua Kimmich really work hard, and Kimmich was really finding it hard to contain him in this game. Diomande just couldn't find that final killer ball to initiate something productive until 30 minutes into the game. But, like I said, it was coming for quite a while. Ivory Coast were having a lot of joy finding him in space, looping it over Kimmich, the whole lot. RB Leipzig are sitting on a real gold mine with this kid, a real Diamande, if you will. Diamond. I'll see myself out. I'm not sure how Amad has missed this first shot. It looks like he was fast asleep as he's handed the ball on a silver platter. Sadly for the Ivory Coast, this thing of them not really being able to finish their dinner and just, being played into great positions, whether it be by Amad Diallo or Yan Diomande or Nicolas Pepe when he came on later on, and then just fluffing their lines by taking too many touches or missing outright, it was criminal. It was criminal how many opportunities they missed, and Amad Diallo, he got bailed out over here for this first goal, but Simon Adingra didn't. Maybe the most gilt-edged chance came when Nicolas Pepe came off the bench and squares it to him. He takes a touch instead of going first time, and the German defense clears. I was saying live the most obvious thing that Ivory Coast were going to regret this, and lo and behold, they did. Although by this point, when that opportunity was missed, it was already 1-1. A man by the name of Dennis Undav came on, and he did not come to play. I mean, he did. He was playing the game, as were all the players on the field. But you guys know what I mean, though. Mr. Super Sub himself. He comes off the bench against Curaçao, gets 2 assists and a goal. Comes off the bench against Ivory Coast, gets 2 goals, and wins the match. At what point does he start for Germany? And by the way, I'm not talking about starting in the next game because they're playing Ecuador next. They're already through to the next round. He hasn't started any games in this World Cup. He's almost guaranteed to start against Ecuador. But I'm talking about in the knockouts, because from where I was sitting, the man's movement, his strength, his finishing instinct, it trumps anything that Germany have in their starting lineup right now. Kai Havertz offers a lot. I'm a very big fan of Kai Havertz. I've always been a very big fan of Kai Havertz. But I think think Undav just offers too much to leave him on the bench. A case could be made for starting Havertz with Undav. When the formation became quite fluid after Undav came on, that's when Germany looked their most dangerous. Although for obvious reasons that may not fly defensively. It wasn't just Undav though, all of Nagelsmann's subs were great. Germany weren't really getting very far in their midfield, but all that seemed to be fixed when Amiri came on for Pavlovic. Both goals came from immaculate passes that Undav was able to bury in really good fashion. The first, a ball in from the right by Nadiem Amiri. The second, a truly sublime line-splitting pass by Felix Meka. Undav's second goal after that Meka pass was just so good. The turn, the strike, brilliant. It is tough for Ivory Coast because I thought that they also played quite well. I mean, their goalkeeper Fofana was making some really good saves towards the end as Germany started to crank up the pressure. Olai as well in the midfield. I mean, I hadn't really seen him play before, but he was really good for Ivory Coast upon watching back a lot of things and watching the game as it happened. So it's just tough. They didn't take their opportunities and they paid for it. But back to Germany for a second. They still have problems in my eyes. They're through to the next round and that's really good for them, but don't let this result fool you. From a team perspective, there was a lot to be desired. Joshua Kimmich was way too easy to get past. Florian Wirtz, I didn't really notice him all too much. Leroy Sané, for the second time in a row in this World Cup, for the I don't know how many times in a row in a Germany shirt. His pressing and off-the-ball movement is good, but you do expect more output from a player of his seniority. Every time he gets on the ball, it's either a cross straight into the first man or a shot that doesn't even travel as far as the box. I think this is still quite a beatable side. Ivory Coast definitely showed us all this, and I think that if they had better finishing, they score at least 3 goals in this game. And again, as we all know,
if my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike.
Well done to Germany. Curaçao drew to Ecuador, getting their first point in a World Cup. By the way, Curaçao have more points than Turkey. More on that later. Anyway, this group is very interesting because everyone technically can go through. So just some brief words and some other matches and some other results that I thought were very interesting. First one we'll go to is Group D, the US versus Australia. There were a lot of questions surrounding this US side when it was announced that Christian Pulisic wouldn't be playing in this one, especially considering how Australia dispatched Turkey in the first round. But the US looked very comfortable. Hats off to Maurizio Pochettino because he has built a really good system. The US really showed up over here. They scored 2 goals. The first one was an own goal. The second one was the result of a bit of a fortuitous deflection. And I think that the lazy argument here would be to say that the US were lucky, but I do think that that is intentionally reductive because they clearly made their own luck. Folarin Balogun drives down the left for the first and forces the error. The second was a really well-taken set piece where no Australians pounced on a deflected Dest shot. Freeman was the first one to the ball and, quite ironically, he was a free man in the box for his header. This was quite interesting from an Australia perspective because seeing as they went down so early, it was on them to attack. They couldn't play the way they did against Turkey where they took the lead and they were able to sort of weather the storm. But the US were never in danger. It was a bit scrappy. Australia had some decent opportunities, some good moments, especially when Iran Kunda came on. So the US win Group D, which brings us to Turkey, everyone's favorite dark horse. I feel like just hearing the words dark horse sends anyone that's Turkish into a fit of rage and frothing at the mouth and just seething because goddamn, this happens every single time, doesn't it? They arrive at a major competition, everyone sees the players that they have and the ability they have on the ball and just they're not able to live up to the hype. They're always dubbed as a team that quote unquote will surprise you. And you know what? They did surprise me. 61 shots in 2 games with 13 on target and no goals is surprising, to say the least. In both the Australia and the Paraguay games, they peppered the opposition's goal, but just completely forgot how to finish. It was tragic. Turkey missed in all of these scenarios. Is it possible they've done it on purpose? I truly wonder. Although having said that, with how they've been finishing in this tournament, I truly doubt that they're even capable of feigning that kind of precision in any case. Against Paraguay, they held 78% of the ball, but after conceding early, that counted for nothing. Against Australia, they had over 60%. A lot of people, myself included, predicted Turkey to top their group. We all saw that the last game was going to be the USA versus Turkey in this group, and the thought, at least on my end, was that this would be a table-topping event where both teams had already secured their entry into the next round. Nope, thanks to the fact that tiebreakers are head-to-heads in this cup, Turkey are on the plane. Also, by the way, interesting point, last point on this game, Turkey played the entirety of the second half against 10 men. Almiron got sent off for covering his mouth in a heated moment. Some are calling this the Prestiani law. If you didn't know, in the 25-26 football season, the most recent one, Benfica player Gianluca Prestiani covered his mouth in a match against Real Madrid when speaking to Vinicius Jr. This led Vinny Jr. to accuse Prestiani of racism. Of course, it's a contentious situation. Everyone has an opinion on it. It's tough to prove, all this, all that, but we're not going to get into any of that over here. But what I will say is that it seems like a pretty effective way to ensure that that sort of thing never happens again. If you're going to say something on the pitch with everyone watching, then in these sorts of situations, then, you got to say it proud. Fair enough. Again, everyone has their opinion on it. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. Next one, Netherlands smack Sweden 5-1. So I watched the first half and Netherlands were just leaps and bounds better. I wasn't sure about Sweden even going into this tournament because they only qualified through the Interconfederation playoffs, and they only got into the Interconfederation playoffs due to their Nations League ranking. They finished dead last in their actual World Cup qualifications group. Still, they started off this tournament quite strong, deceivingly strong, as it would prove to be, because 5-1 against Tunisia was their first result, only for the Netherlands to turn around and give them the same scoreline. It's quite surprising that Sweden was so toothless here. 21 shots with 10 on target versus the Netherlands, 12 with 7. Two of the best attackers in the world play for their team, and even with those stats that we just seen and the players that they have, only one goal. Scored by Anthony Elanga. To be entirely fair, it was a great finish. But still, Netherlands look good going into the next round. And finally, Tunisia are just everyone's punching bag, aren't they? 5-1 first against Sweden, 4-0 now against Japan, and they haven't even played the Netherlands yet. At this point, just bring in another manager, man. What harm could it do? 3 for 3. I mean, it can't get any worse. You're already going home. Just go for the record at this point. It's about entertainment now. Anyway, there we have it. World Cup's been great. Hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. I will catch you in the next one. Stay safe, all that good stuff. Bye.